Well, the Department for Work and Pensions has issued a statement saying, "We don't recognise the write-off figure quoted by the committee and expect this to be substantially less. There is real potential to use much of the existing IT. We will announce our plans for the next phase of UC delivery shortly." Well, with me now are Devon Galani. He's a Director of Policy and Practice and was an architect of Universal Credit, and the Labour MP Frankfield. Frankfield, are these just teething troubles, or do they actually point to a more fundamental problem?
I don't think these are, well, if they're teething problems, we've got a really bad set of teeth, haven't we? I object to universal credit for two reasons. One is, morally, we should be trying to get people off means tests and raise real wages rather than subsidise low wages. And secondly, I've always doubted that we're clever enough to do a top-down IT programme instead of trying to build one up from the bottom up. And we've seen in this programme, the government sensibly did pilots, then had to scale down the pilots, then had to say we can only put ordinary people with no any peculiarities actually into those pilots. And anybody who works for a small employer, which is most of us, can't actually be in the scheme. We may have to do a special deal with those. So it's heading for a mega disaster.
Devon Glenn, I mean, is this time to scrap it and come up with a new scheme, as Frankfield suggests?
It's absolutely not at all time to scrap it. I think now is the time to remind people why it's happening in the first place. It's really important to remember the complete mess of the benefit system we have today. Now, I work with organisations on the front line that have to deal with their current benefit system as it is. And they tell me every day how it complicates life for themselves and, more importantly, for benefit claimants. And it makes it far more difficult to support those people.
But if it doesn't work, you presumably got to think of something again. So
the Public Accounts Committee also acknowledged that universal credit still has cross-party support. Getting it to work and getting it to work right is obviously absolutely critical, and that's the job of the committee like this.
Devon, I mean, cross-party support can be important, but what's there about my party which has any track record for lifting this project up and making it work? Cross-party support doesn't. All these big programmes of IT have actually failed, and I genuinely think we now need to get an exit strategy. But
there is a sense, I mean, obviously one thinks of Obamacare in America, they've had massive problems with IT there, but the fact of the matter is we are now in an IT world, aren't we? We know that there have been costly failures, but there's no going back to paper records, is there?
No, not at all. But if we were actually going to make this scheme work, and the savings come through, Adam, which are really important, we now know that half of those who will use it actually can't use IT. So the idea that most claimants are going to be able to go in and fill in their own requirements and their own details is actually not on. I genuinely think Labour's role now is not to keep saying there's all cross-party support for a project which is sinking, but to think about, we hope to be in government in less than 2 years. On day one, what are we going to say about this programme or an alternative? Because people will want something that works.
Let's talk about where there is progress. And if you look at how local authorities, for example, are administering housing benefit today, a lot of them are using an online system. They're making that work for claimants, those that need support.
But what about this argument? Because we are talking about poor people who often have other handicaps as well, and we know they don't have regular access to the internet.
Absolutely, and a lot of those problems are solved by those people doing what they do today, which is going into their advice centres and getting support from an advisor to fill in those claims.
Devon, but when you say about how creative local authorities have been with housing benefit, I agree.
Great.
But the original scheme was to have housing benefit part of universal credit. Part of universal credit's great aim is to actually pay this month's benefit based on last month's wages. So we didn't have all the stuff with the tax credit system that you actually be massively overpaid or massively underpaid. We now know that most of us work in small firms. Small firms are not actually doing the returns for real-time income, and therefore the revenue have said, well, that's all right, we'll for a year we'll let you get away with this. So, and all they're doing is kicking the can down the road.
So what we're hearing is that actually there's cross-party support, people want this to work, and from some sides there's cynicism over whether government are able to deliver it. And what my argument is that actually you're seeing organisations able to deliver this today. Through housing benefit. We're also seeing
problems, according to the public.
We are also seeing problems, and what I'd say is that these are problems that need to be overcome, because actually in the grand scheme of things, we can't keep running a welfare system that no one agrees with is fit for purpose.
What about the people who need universal credit or universal benefits. I mean, right now, as a result of this not working as it should, who's losing out? How many people?
Well, clearly those actually at the bottom of the pile, Adam.
Yeah.
But if you actually look about how this means-tested welfare state has grown, when Sir Keith Joseph introduced the first attempt to subsidise wages, in those money terms, it was £2 million. This year it's £20 billion. Now, of course, if we had real income, that would push it down a bit. But there's this massive expansion. Once you push people onto means tests, jolly hard to get them off. And what Ian Duncan Smith is doing, and it's noble, his efforts to do this, is actually to create yet another monster which isn't working. And the examples that Devon gave, which are good examples, were not supposed to be local authorities creatively running housing benefit. There was supposed to be one entry point. Housing benefit was supposed to be part of this universal credit. You make one application, you get all your the entitlements which you are due. A wonderful objective, but wow, how difficult it's proving to deliver.
Going to have to leave it there. Thank you both very much.
Thank you.